Welcome to Tiny Marketing. This is Sarah Noel Block, and this is the podcast that helps B2B service businesses do more with less. Learn lean, actionable, organic marketing strategies you can implement today. No fluff, just powerful growth tactics that work. Ready to scale smarter? Hit that subscribe button and start growing your business with Tiny Marketing. Hey friends, it's Sarah Noel Block, and you're listening to Tiny Marketing Club. Today is episode 122, and I wanted to do a little juxtaposition from last week's episode. In 121, we talked about the anti-social media strategy to lead generation. So we talked about how you can, on repeat, generate new leads without having to rely on social media because ew. But this week, I am talking to Emma Tesler, and she is teaching us how to grow your audience on social media using just organic. So we're talking storytelling strategies, we're talking engagement, we're talking about building community. Emma is brilliant, and I'm excited to have her today. So enjoy this episode. Hi, Emma. Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. My name is Emma Tesler, and I'm the founder of 95 Media. Really, we specialize in creating high converting content for brands who are just kind of tired of posting on social media, but not seeing the results. I really believe in the power of organic marketing, and that is what we do best over
You
here.
know you're a girl after my own heart. I'm all about organic, and I love that you focus in on social media, especially organic social media, because so few people do. And
Yes.
I'm working with a lot of soloists who have seen that black void screaming into the void effect of social media, where it's a lot of times they just don't feel like it's worth it, that they can't get any traction from it. So we're going to dive into that and how to not only not be screaming into the void, but also, get engagement and conversions from social media.
Yes. I mean, there are just so many brands not doing it the right way, but there's so much opportunity out there. And you truly don't need to spend thousands of dollars a month on paid media. If your organic marketing is doing the right thing, connecting with the right people, you can absolutely see results with just organic.
Yes, I'm absolutely with you. I think in our original call, we bonded over messaging, like the importance of messaging and how it bleeds through to everything else that you do, including social media.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, your messaging is truly what sets you apart. There's nothing super unique anymore. I mean, even just looking at what we do, right? Like marketing, there's a million and one marketers out there, but it really comes down to how you present yourself, how you connect with your audience, and what is that like common thread of messaging through all of your content, because that's ultimately going to be why someone chooses to work with you rather than the person down the street who does the exact same thing as you.
Yeah.
So, really always just looking for how to stand out in the social media marketing
Yeah,
space.
that's a really, really good point because a lot of us are in like a commodity space. I'm working with CFOs, I'm working with copywriters, and there are a lot of people in the financial space. There are a lot of people doing copywriting. So, how do you stand out? What is your advice for someone who is doing social media because they think that they should, but they're not seeing any results?
Well, first, I would audit what you're currently doing, because sometimes we think things aren't really working when that may not be the case. We have clients come to us all the time. They're like, wait a second, like nothing's working. All of our numbers are crazy. Like the content is performing well. And we're like, well, let's take a step back here. Let's look at the data. And actually, the data looks really great. So we don't need to worry. But we get into our head sometimes and we think, well, oh, it's not working because of X, Y, and Z. But ultimately, when you look at your numbers, they tell you everything you need to know. So if you don't think something's working, I would really take 10 minutes out of your day and sit down with the numbers, get familiar with them, and really understand what they're telling you. And on the flip side, if you think things are going well, still look at those numbers, because that will tell you what is not working and what you need to swap out. Now, in order to really kind of stand out with your messaging and set yourself apart, the number one thing that I really recommend doing is thinking about what makes you different.
Right.
Sometimes in our quote unquote real lives, we try and uh, dim the things that set us apart. Maybe it's something we're self-conscious about, or maybe at one point, like as a child, you got made fun of. But those are exactly the things that set you apart on social. And it's so funny because sometimes you look at influencers and people get famous, quote unquote, for like doing something that you know a lot of people who do in your regular everyday life, but they just leaned
Yeah.
into that thing, you know? And so I think a lot of us don't really lean in to the thing that sets us apart. We lean out. If you could start leaning into the thing that sets you apart in any small little different way, it may just be that catalyst that your audience needs to say, "Oh, look at her. That's so cool. I want to consume more of her content and ultimately I want to work with her because she's doing something different. I'm not seeing that anywhere else."
You are absolutely right. I have seen actually tested out. It's like, what are after one day, I think we talked about this in our pre-call. I wrote down all of the little things that I thought made me different based off of my experience, and I just started testing it out to see what resonated with people. One week I'd focus on this thing, the next another, and that was how I was able to see what unique value proposition of mine matter to people that I would wanna work with.
That's so good. I love the idea of testing out those different things because it doesn't feel like we're all really weird in some different ways, and you don't have to, like, put all of that out there, but it can just be one thing, that just kind of built a connection. You know, like, for example, I have celiac, so I'm gluten-free. I never talk about that on social, but if I were, that could bring in a community of people who also
Yeah.
resonated with. You know, it can be something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be something super vulnerable. It doesn't have to be something that makes you feel like, you're opening yourself up for critique. Just be something about you that you live with in your everyday life, and it's something that people can connect on. Ultimately, we're all looking for that connection on social. So, your job as a marketer or as a brand or as the founder of a business who's looking to bring in, a real community and build that community, you're trying to find ultimately points of interest that can create connection between that person and your brand. Whether it's a personal brand, product, service, whatever it is, you're really trying to build connection points like you would in a friendship. Like, when you make a new friend, you're like, "Oh, you went to that high school? I know someone else who went to that high school." Or, "You really like that type of food? Let's go grab dinner and a drink at that place." But you're looking for those things that have similarities between you. And that's ultimately, we think about that with in-person friendships and relationships, but we struggle oftentimes to think about that in that way for online marketing, and it really is so true.
Yeah, that's really accurate, and I don't think that it hit for me until I had to start selling on a regular basis, and I realized what I'm doing here to build relationships and work is exactly what I do to make friends in real life, and it
Yeah.
didn't connect to me until I had to sell because I used to do retainers, so I would have to sell, like, 5 times in, 2 years.
Yeah, isn't that so funny? Well, I love that you had that shift. I mean, with social, there's always opportunities for selling, and what's so cool is that you get to sell in so many different ways with social because your content is always selling for you. You have your Instagram stories, which are really low risk content, and you can literally pitch like publicly to a like one to many type of style on your stories. And then there's your DMs where you have one-to-one interactions and you have a more direct line of communication with that person. You send voice notes, etc. So it's a great like landing place to really test those selling skills because ultimately what we're all using social for is to sell. Like you market with your content and then you utilize that as, part of the buyer journey to sell someone on whatever it is that you're offering. So it's really cool that you had that experience because a lot of our clients experience the same.
Yeah, yeah, I bet they do because it was like, "Why didn't I risk this before?" kind of moment, like, "I should have known this."
Yeah.
But, okay, I wanna marinate on what you just talked about, but before we do that, let's go back a moment. So for people who might not think that there's anything special about them, anything that makes them stand out, what are some are there exercises or anything like that that they could go through to start picking out things that might resonate with people?
Such a good question. I think I would recommend, I mean, I don't have like an exercise, but what I would say to do is to talk with like a friend or talk to your current clients as well. Your clients or, customers have so much information that they oftentimes don't share with you. But they have a really unique perspective because they're on the other side of that experience. So maybe it's like, hey, what do you love seeing on our social? Like now that you work with us and like you're over that bridge, what do you love seeing now? What did you love seeing before you signed? What would you like to see more of on social? I would also poll your audience. Posting Instagram stories and having like, hey, what do you want to see more of? And have options for them. Oftentimes people do better when you have options rather than just like open door.
Right.
Like,
It's a lot
where do we
easier
go?
to identify something if you're given options rather than an open text box. You're like, "Hmm."
Yes. Completely. And I mean, I would also look at like get honest with yourself too and think about the things that maybe make you a little uncomfortable or things that you find yourself not really sharing a lot of and challenge yourself to just share like the tip of the iceberg about it, right? Like how I said I have celiac disease and I'm gluten free because of that. I didn't tell you my entire life story. I didn't tell you like how I found it and how I was so sick before I found it and what that journey was like to go off gluten and how it transformed my life. I didn't tell you any of that. But just, like, saying that one part, like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gluten free," like, that opens the door for a lot of
Yeah.
conversations because people who also have experienced that likely know that journey, or maybe someone is feeling like they might be, and so they wanna learn more about it, and it just you have so much commonality, so much gray space that you could find connection points on, but again, it's not something that, like, I talk a lot about because it's just part of my everyday, like, I don't really think about it, but when we take a moment to sit and think like, "Okay, what are those things that, like, I don't really talk about, but, like, definitely make me a little bit different?" It can just be, like, the door to, a lot more
Yeah,
connection.
and I think that a good starting point as you're trying to figure out what makes you unique is to look at the things that really challenged you in your life that you had to go through a journey on to discover and come out from the other side because those stories are probably the ones that are going to resonate the most because people will come in like, "Oh, that sounds like me. I've been in that same
Yeah.
situation."
Totally, and I mean, you're talking about too, like, the pain, like, to pleasure kind of, like, arch that everyone experiences in different ways, but those stories and when you can really hone in on that story is really captivating to a lot of people, and people wanna know more, and it entices them, but also connects with them too, so that's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go into selling with social media because that is very controversial where people are either all in on it or like, I can't, I'll lose my followers on it. So, what are some strategies that people can take to start just like dipping their toe in on that?
I would first challenge the idea of like why it feels weird or uncomfortable to sell on social, right? Because if you're not really looking to sell on social, then I would wonder, why are we posting
Oh,
then?
right.
Right? Like, what's our goal here? Because, there's always different parts of, like, the customer funnel that you're looking to target with your marketing. So, if you're looking to increase brand reach and awareness, you're really looking at top of funnel. And if you're looking for more sales, you're looking at bottom of your funnel. So, depending on where your goals lie with your marketing, you would or yeah, with the end goal of your marketing, you would approach your marketing content very differently. So if you were like, "No, I'm not looking to directly get sales out of this because we have a different process that brings in sales and leads. What I'm really looking to do is increase top of funnel." I would ask more questions and I would really try and get to the bottom of like, well, why isn't social a avenue where you get leads from? Because it can be, right? The other flip side of this is that everything we all do every single day is selling somebody on something. Like, truly, sales skills are life skills because no matter if you are selling to a prospect or you're selling your husband on, like, Let's go to the taco place for dinner. I'm not cooking dinner." Like, you are selling somebody on something all the time. So, those sales skills are something that is actually really, really valuable. I was always somebody who, like, really hated the idea of selling, and I was always saying, like, sales are just not my thing. Like it just, I'm not a salesperson. I really love what I do and I love everything else in the business, but like I don't love the sales part of it. But this year, I really got like honest with myself about it. And I was like, you know what? Like, I am the reason why we're not scaling at the rate that I wanted us to because I'm not fixing the problem, which is that I'm not like bettering my own sales skills on this. And when I made that shift and I started like bettering my own skills and taking, learning more materials and really executing it well, so much has changed for us this year. And that's such a small little thing, but it has impacted the way that we market and the results of our marketing. So if you feel this like resistance against selling, I would really dive deeper into it because there is so much opportunity on the other side of that. When you have your sales skills down and you have really great marketing, the potential for new business from your social media marketing content is seriously
Yeah.
unlimited. I think there's just so much potential a lot of people don't look at because we're afraid of feeling salesy and we want people to think that like we're selling them, but really you're selling somebody on something every single moment of the day. Like, it's not anything crazy.
And selling is serving. It's not like you're trying to
Yeah,
push something on someone who doesn't need it. What you're trying to do is provide an option for a solution to the problem that they're having. It's a matter of perspective, is what it really is. We're often going into it feeling like, I don't want them to think that I'm selling them. So don't. You don't have to try and sell them. Instead, just try and solve their problem. And if your solution is it, then that's great.
exactly. I mean, when you know that you can solve a problem for somebody, it feels really good to sell to
Yeah.
them because you're like, "Oh my gosh, wait, like you don't have this like I know how to solve that. Like I can turn that ship around for you. Like here's exactly how we can do it." And yeah, like it's going to be an investment, but so is everything else in life. Like that's not a crazy thing to say like this is going to cost you money to see those
People are going to
results,
expect.
but this solves. Yeah, exactly, people expect it, like, it's going to solve the problem, you're doing them a service to sell them that whatever it is. So you're absolutely right, it is a perspective shift, and it's an extremely powerful perspective shift that changes your life, changes your business, and opens so many doors.
Yeah. I mean, I know because I was in a similar spot where I felt super uncomfortable with it. And as soon as I changed my mindset on it, I was like, this isn't gross, actually. This is
Yeah.
helpful. And then just the way I came into those conversations was completely different too. 'Cause
Mm, that's
it
so
feels like a
true.
power dynamic shift when it's a sales situation instead of a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's also your job as the seller to determine if you're a good fit for the person on the other side of the
Yeah.
screen. So, like, you're going in to interview them as much as they are interviewing you. If you go in with that perspective, then there's no power imbalance, like, you're actually kind of in charge of the conversation because you're deciding if they're a good fit to work with on your end. Like, you don't wanna sell somebody on something that isn't a good fit. So, it's a two-way street, really, and I really think that, like, when you look at it as, like, it's equal parts, you're selling them and they're selling you, it just changes the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I can transport myself back in time and think about how I felt small in a selling situation because I felt like I had to prove myself. And then there's the power dynamics behind like proposals and just the back and forth. You can really find the red and green flags in the sales process too with potential clients. Like if you made me feel small, like I had to beg for your work, then it's probably not a good fit.
Yes, I mean, I think it comes with experience as well, determining those red and green
Yeah.
flags to and also knowing that you're in a place of power because I think a lot of us, especially in like your early days of starting your business, like you're just trying to get work through the door. So you say yes to some projects that like in your gut, you shouldn't have
Oh,
said yes
yeah.
to. And then you, like, feel it for months to come because you're like, "Well, crap, like, I knew I shouldn't have said yes to that person." And so when you learn those, like, I think we all have to have that experience, but when you get through that and you start to realize this is a good client, this is not really where I wanna be, it really puts you in a position of power. And I could talk about proposals all day. I am such a like, I love learning about how other people do their proposals and just that entire, like, sales journey that you bring people on. It's really cool to figure out, like, what works and what doesn't and adjust to the client and their needs through the journey, as well as continuing to make sure that like your process is streamlined because there's so many different ways to propose services to somebody, but really figuring out what works for like your industry, your types of clients, and your business is such a really cool part of doing business and also being able to shift within the company
Yeah,
too.
it is fun, and it really depends on who you're selling to in order to like, what your process can look like, because I haven't done proposals in years. I do a completely different process, but I know someone who is working with major enterprises, they have those internal, like, deals where it's like, "I need 3 proposals." So,
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
you just can't avoid it.
No, totally. I mean, every industry is so different. So it's exactly figuring out what works. And then, I mean, we had a process that worked for us for like 3 years. And then I like burned down to the ground and completely redid our entire sales process this
I'm
year. And
so
we've seen like,
curious about both.
well, we did a lot of changes and I got some outside help with it as well to like really put together something that created a better experience because what I was realizing was that the sales journey we were taking people through was totally aligned with like the level of service that we offered 3 years ago, but we are at such a higher level of service now that I really wanted to elevate the sales journey for our audience and support them in different ways. So, we did a lot of things. One of my favorite thing that we implemented this year was a new format of our proposals. We do proposals for every single sales call. And previously I would like put together like a document, like a PDF and email it over. And now we have a secondary call where I literally walk through the
That makes a
proposal.
huge
Um,
difference.
Huge difference. Love. But even more than that, it's if anyone listening is familiar with Dubsado, it's custom coded in Dubsado. It's interactive. They can like add the things to their cart along the way.
Auto?
Yeah, we love Dubsado, and they can go through the proposal contract invoice process on their own, which eliminated the need for back and forth with myself. It made them more in the like driver's seat of their own customer journey, and really made it simple for everybody to just say like, okay, here's it, together. Let's walk through it. Let's answer questions. Let's handle objections if you have them. And then by the time that you get this, like you're feeling really good about it, or we're going back to make adjustments because you didn't feel good about it the first time around. So it's just really changed the game, and those little shifts, which can feel really little in the moment, can have such a massive impact on your business as a whole that it's our job as founders to really consistently be auditing those items of our business and processes within our business that can be optimized.
I love auditing my systems. Like, anybody who listens to this show, they know I'm a systems girl, and I second your Dubsado choice. Everybody who, because I will do a proposal after I do a gateway offer. So I do end up sending the proposal through Dubsado with the contract and the invoice, but I love it because you can send follow-up emails automatically. You can schedule your first appointment right there. You don't have to, like, you just set it up and then you don't have to deal with it again. So done
Yeah,
perfectly.
those onboarding workflows are my favorite. So we've always had an onboarding workflow, but we built out a workflow, as you were mentioning, for the proposals as well. So a bunch of follow-up emails, and then once they're converted into like a paying client, then it kicks off their onboarding workflow. And it really eliminates so much of your own time, which to me, whenever I see myself doing something like over and over again, I'm like, no,
Yeah.
this needs to be automated. I need to not be a part of this process. Let's go. Let's figure this out because this is not a good use of my time.
Yeah. Yeah. Every client I've had since I've moved to Dubsado has been like, I love that. What was that experience that I just went through?
Yes, I literally had a client email me the other day. They were like, "So, we loved the journey. We loved, like, your entire sales process. Did you, like, develop software to make that proposal? Like, we wanna do that for us." I was like, "No, ma'am. We just
New
Dubsado."
girl at Dubsado or work them up.
I was like, "I do not custom anything. That is not anything crazy." But yeah, it is really cool when you get compliments on your own system and you're like, "It works for me." Like, it's just a great part of the business to have in
Yeah,
place.
I actually went to it after I hired a web designer who used Dubsado. I'm like, that was such a beautiful experience. I wanted that
Yep.
too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we were talking about selling on social, and you mentioned stories. You can pitch directly in that. Now, let's talk about the DM aspect of it. So, what is an appropriate way to use DMs to sell?
Well, there's so many, truly. I mean, your DMs are like a playground really for direct conversations. One of my favorite tools in DMs is the voice memo option, right? So you can send a voice memo and I know some people like don't love voice memos, but what's really great about them is that you again have that really personalized touch to the message. You know that it's directly from somebody. You can give a really custom answer and they can hear your voice, which again is just another way to connect with somebody. When you look at, I don't know, just like ways to connect, I'm sure it's like a scientific name for that. But we look at things like body language, right? Like, am I facing you? Do we have direct eye contact? Are, my hands doing anything crazy? Well, you don't have any of that on a platform like Instagram. So ways to add that back in and add that human touch is through a voice note, and it's a really simple way to do it. It takes just as long as typing out a message. Um, One of my other favorite things to do in DMs is actually send welcome messages to new followers. Now, there's a really spammy way to do that, and there's a really human way to do it.
You're
So,
both. This
yeah,
very
the one not to do, the spammy version of this is to have it, like, automated and set up through Meta or within your Instagram and have, like, a bot message essentially be sent out to any new followers that follow your page. I've been on the receiving end of those. It's very obvious that it's spam, like a bot. It almost, like, turns you off more than piques your interest, which is obviously the opposite of what we want to have happen. Now, on the flip side of that, the really human way to go about sending a welcome message is yes, you can absolutely have like a canned part of your message, but have a personalized aspect in there.
Uh-huh.
Will this take time? Yeah. But should this take more than 2 minutes of looking at someone's profile? No. So things you want to add in are like someone's first name. You want to add in something that maybe you really enjoy about their profile. Ask them a personal question. Give them a compliment on something. It doesn't have to be like anything crazy. We don't have to overthink this. It's really like you see somebody wearing a cute sweater in a grocery store and you let her know, like, oh my gosh, I love that sweater. Where'd you get it? Like, open the conversation, just be human
Yeah.
about it, you know? But I can't tell you how many times we have sent those types of messages from our 95 Media Instagram account, and it has opened a sales conversation that never would have been started. When we send those welcome messages, it begins conversations that really never would have started otherwise. Oftentimes, I'll do like a training or a presentation or even a podcast interview like this, and it'll bring in, a new follower for our account. And we don't always, as humans, like tell people why we're following them or like let them know how we found them. But just by starting the conversation on our end, we oftentimes learn, oh, you came from this podcast, or you really loved that, or you saw us doing X, Y, and Z, and now you want to learn more about our services. And, you know, so many sales conversations have come out of those welcome messages that truly either never would have or would have taken like 6 months for them to go through that journey and, get up the courage to take the next step. So it's a really cool way to like just nurture your audience and let them feel really seen and heard without it being spammy and helping them in their own journey to get the desired result that they're after as well.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Actually, the coach that I have right now, she, um, she did the voice message welcome when I started following her, and we ended up having a conversation, and then I was like, "Okay, I've binged her podcast and binged her master classes," but it all started with that welcome message.
Totally. Yeah, and, like, who knows? Maybe you still would have worked with her, but it would have taken a lot longer, to build that relationship and to really feel like she was a good fit. So, those tiny little action steps that we can take that are totally free and really don't require that much time can just make the biggest difference.
Yeah. So, let's say you have already existing audience and you need to re-engage them. You maybe ghosted your account or they were a follower for a long time and you just realized they're a good fit client. Is there like a trigger that would make sense to start a conversation?
I think if you see that they are watching your stories or liking your content or even commenting on your content, it kind of gives you a jumping off point to re-engage with them and ask them a question. But alternatively, we also start a lot of conversations for ourselves as well as for a lot of the clients that we work with, just based on outbound engagement too. So sometimes we feel like we have to wait until someone engages with us to give us the permission to contact them,
Yeah.
but truly, like, you can start the conversation too. So, one way to do that is to just go in, consume their content, leave a comment on their post, or even DM them, be like, "Hey, I saw, you just posted, like, you got a new puppy, like, how old is he? How's it going?" Like, ask them a question that's relevant to them. Don't just ask a question that's like, "Oh, so, like, how many sales is your marketing bringing in for you this month?" Like, no.
That's like the standard
Yeah.
gross DM'd.
Like, please never ever do that because that's simply never gonna get you results. But if
Oh
you just take the
gosh.
time to, like, be a human, it really it's not that hard.
What about the nagging DM that's like, "You're doing such great work. I wish there was more people engaging with your content.
Um,
This could
yeah.
help."
Like, please, like, me too, but go away.
Yeah, we feel the same, but now
Yeah.
you brought this light to me, and I am disgusted with myself.
Yeah, and it's like, that's never going to be the way to get in. I mean, clearly it must be working on somebody because they keep using them and they
Wow.
don't change. But yeah, the spamming message, I think just really doing everything in your power to just like lean in again, going back to what we were saying in the beginning, like lean into who you are. If you use like really quirky like language, or again, why voice notes are so great is because you get to show who you are in your voice notes and be your enthusiastic self in your voice notes and really show like your personality a little bit more, because again, that is going to be why someone is really intrigued by what you do, is, what sets you apart.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. After my experience with Katie, I'm like, "I really like that." I started voice messaging people, and it does have more intimacy to it when you can hear
Yeah.
someone's voice.
A lot more. Yeah, and it just gives you, like, more insight into who they are, really.
Yeah, yeah. Just, like, by looking at her, I wouldn't have thought, sweet Southern drawl
Isn't that so funny?
with a totally different vibe when you're actually talking to someone.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have stories. We have DMs. Is there any other way that let's talk about posts. How do we sell in our posts?
How do we sell I mean, how do you not sell in your posts, you know? Like, everything you're posting is selling somebody on something, as we've said, but really, I would go back to, like, your funnel, right? So your sales funnel of top to bottom. Ultimately, your content, what you're looking to do between stories, DMs, and your feed, and then, of course, your feed can be broken down even further into, like, reels, carousels, static posts, is you're looking to take people from brand exposure to paying you. And so we're going top to bottom. And as you go from the top, which is like really wide, your top of funnel, that is going to have the most amount of people. So, step number one when you're creating content is you're looking to increase your impressions and your reach. That's going to increase your top of funnel amount of people. And then as you bring people down the funnel, you are going to lessen the amount of people who get down to the bottom and who ultimately decide to like book a sales call or actually begin working with you. And that's all good because you would never be able to serve the amount of people at your top of funnel. But what's really cool is by the time people get down there, they have consumed so much that they have this really robust idea of who you are. They have trust in what you do and they know they want to work with you. It's that no like trust factor. So, really, your content needs to hit on all of your different content pillars. It needs to hit them on your stories, in your DMs, on your feed, in your podcast, in your emails, all of these different avenues of getting in front of your audience so that they can really learn and get to know you in different ways. Your content, though, I really believe in having strong CTAs in your feed content.
Mhm.
I would make sure that you are really clear on what you're selling, because if people don't know what you're selling, they're never going to buy, right? So that goes back to, like, not wanting to feel salesy, but, like, you're selling with your content regardless. And then really thinking about, if your top of funnel is increasing your impressions and your reach, what do you do with people who have found you? What do you want them to do next? So, really, oftentimes we look at your reels as your really top of funnel content, because they're going to get the most reach. They're going to get the most impressions, more than a carousel or a static post. But when people find you through your reel, what happens next is critical. So, if they're going to your profile, they then consume your static and your carousel content, which should be more sales focused content, versus your reels being more entertainment style
No.
content. And then that way you are again kind of approaching it with a really holistic strategy, so that as they continue to consume your content, they're building trust with you and more enticed to reach out.
That is really helpful, and I've never heard that advice on this show before. So,
Love that.
content that gets the most impressions should be more entertainment based. And then when you get down to the ones that don't get as many impressions are probably going to be your bigger fans, the people that are more, they're going to your profile intentionally. So those can be more selling. And I agree with
Yeah.
you. All content should sell. And by the time that you're going on a sales call or someone's sliding into your DMs because they're interested in your offer, they should already be 99% sold through your content. And it should just be like a logistics call. Like, how much,
Yeah.
when can we do it? Those kind of questions.
Those are the best sales calls, truly, because it really makes your life so much easier. And I mean, a podcast is a huge part of that. I don't know if you experience that as well, but, like, I have so many sales calls where people be like, "Yeah, I just listened to, like, a bunch of your recent episodes. I love X, Y, and Z topic that you're talking
Yeah,
about." And it's like the podcast is literally closing calls for us, and it is making it so much easier to get on the call because it's long form, and again, it's voice. So it's creating that personal connection with them, even though it's one to many. It's not even just for that one person. It is showing expertise. It's building trust. It's giving them opportunities to grow for free. And then by the time you get in a sales call, they're sold from that content. And then you get on, you're like, cool. Like, where do we go from here? What do you want to do?
abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah.
My podcast has brought in so many clients, even if they like, here, I'll give you a funnel, how things
Yeah.
we go on my end. So a lot of times they discover I existed from someone else's podcast. I guested on it. And they're like, oh, she has a podcast. So they'll go to mine and they'll binge that. That nurtures them. And then they go to a sales call. And it's almost always like that. I had a sales call this morning that closed. And she had accidentally found my podcast and booked a sales call right from that one episode.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Isn't that so
thing
crazy?
right now.
That's so cool. I mean, truly, like, not to go down a rabbit hole of podcasting, but people often look at podcasting as like, oh, I want to monetize the podcast with an ad, or I want to monetize it with a sponsorship. And really, there's so many ways to monetize your
Yeah,
podcast. And the best way is when it's for free and you're literally monetizing your own services through your podcast, and it's closing those sales for you.
absolutely. Absolutely. I have sponsors on my show, and sometimes I'll decline sponsors because I have a campaign and I want to be pitching my thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just as valuable at the end of the day.
Yeah. And no, more.
More valuable.
My sponsors aren't paying as much.
True.
All right. How can people work with you?
Yeah. So our main service is social media management. So in that, we really specialize in creating high converting content. What we do is work with brands from top to bottom on their marketing campaigns. We film the content, we create the posts, really deeply engage with their audience, and utilize the data to optimize that content and that customer journey for your audience on social consistently every single week. It's something we're so passionate about because, as we've said a million times, there's just an unlimited amount of opportunity on social. So, yeah, if you're looking for social media management, if you're looking for done for you services, I'd love to talk. We're definitely a great fit for that. And we also have a podcast. It's called Stop Scrolling, Start Scaling. where we do a lot of fun marketing tips and tricks, which is, along the same lines of today's conversation as well.
I that okay, I'm gonna
Yeah,
subscribe and I'll make sure that that's in the show notes too.
beautiful.
Seriously, that service sounds incredibly valuable. There are so many social media managers that don't do the engagement aspect of it and just do the creation. And that, like, 90% of the success is on the engagement aspect of it.
I love that you said that because it is like what I say every single day. 5 years ago, content did the heavy lifting for us, and it was enough to just post a couple of times a week. And that is just not the case anymore. Having a community that is like bought into your mission, that engages with your content, that watches your stories and wants to see what's coming up for you is the difference between getting your content seen and converting it rather than just posting into the void. So, it's a massive part of what we do, and we actually don't offer social media management packages without engagement because it is that important to the success of the overall marketing strategy.
Yeah, that's incredible. All right,
Yeah.
I will have the link to your company in the show notes, your podcast, and it sounds like Instagram is your main channel, so I'll make sure to put that in there too.
Yeah, we are on every platform, but Instagram is my favorite, so find us there.
All right, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, this is so fun.
Well, by the end of this episode, which is where we are right now, you should have an idea of how to grow your community on social media without ads. Completely organic. Thank you so much, Emma, for joining me this week. And if you enjoyed this, please hit like, subscribe, comment, and tell a friend. The more often that you talk about tiny marketing, the more often people will listen. So if you liked it, screenshot it and share it on social. Make sure to tag me. I'm Sarah Noel Block. I mean, you know that because I said it right at the beginning, but I meant that's how you can find me on social. Thank you again for coming. I appreciate you. And yeah, that's all. Goodbye. You love all things tiny marketing. Head down to the show notes page and sign up for the wait list to join the Tiny Marketing Club, where you get to work one-on-one with me with trainings, feedback, and pop-up coaching that will help you scale your marketing as a B2B service business. So I'll see you over in the club.